Hi, sweetheart. Hello. Kinda doing a last minute live. I'm about to teach on the conservation of energy, how to conserve your energy and therefore avoid burnout. I'm just trying to invite a few more people in here so that I can start teaching. I don't think I'll be going live next week, so I just wanted to try and do it today. I don't know if I'll go live again this week, to be honest. This might be the only live that I can actually do this week. So just trying to get a few more people in here. Let me see. Actually, let me see something. Hello, user 26. Hi. Hi, Spotless Mind. Hi. Hello. Trying to get some people. I'm like, is this a good idea? Hello, Cookie. Hi. Oh, yeah, I don't know why I didn't send it to her. Whoops. Sorry. Oof. Body is. Oh, what's up, Unaya? Hey, girl. Trying to get a couple of other people. Hi, Raheem. Hello. Hi, guys. Okay, so, I started reading again. I'm like, oh, per. Yeah, I gotta finish the, what's it called? The request that you guys made. I was trying to do it yesterday, but I'm finna get ready for work. I'll be listening. Okay, no problem. But yeah, I was trying to do that yesterday, but some techie issues came up, so I'm still kind of working with that in terms of Amazon or uploading it to Amazon and just getting my lives on YouTube. But anyways, I know this is like kind of spontaneous, but I really wanted to talk to you guys about conserving energy by way of focusing on the process and not so much on the outcome. And so, from what I have observed, the outcome is a ripple of the process, right? It's inevitable, right? And so, it's not something that you can control, it's more so the byproduct or the effect, right, to the cause, and the cause is you and your devotion to the process. Devotion is just loyalty and steadfastness, right? And so because people are extremely focused on, the outcome of a thing, or rather, no, there's actually another point. So because we have a limited amount of time on the planet, right? Humans don't have a lot of time on the planet. We don't live very long. However, time, on the other hand, is unlimited. By way of focusing on the outcome and trying to control the outcome, you age yourself, right? You outsource your power and you burn out. By way of focusing on the process, however, you inevitably refine the process, you perfect the process, so much so that the result that you desire becomes inevitable because you become undeniable by way of focusing on the process. Getting focused on the process allows you to develop a rhythm, right? Devotion, being devoted to something is a rhythm. To me, when you get lost in the process like that to the point of devotion, time is no longer an obstacle. You start to almost work with time, right? Because you develop a rhythm. And to me, when you are focused on the outcome, you are almost working against time, right? Time is not something that you can control. There's an endless amount of it, but you, human, right, have a very limited time here on the planet. However, it's almost like if you want to touch the unlimited kind of, not feeling, but the unlimited, well, kind of the perception of time being unlimited. It, like, if you want to feel that, right, you devote yourself to the process, because the process is ongoing, right? As long as there is no destination, no perfection, right? As long as there is no plateau, you are committed to this thing for life. You are committed to this thing for however long it goes, right? And so it is almost as if you are less likely to lose energy because you don't have a death grip on the outcome and how you want the outcome to come and the timing of the outcome. All of that will burn you out. Also, guys, if you could like the live so that we can get more people in here, as well as kind of keep the live open. What typically happens is if the live has like no kind of engagement or no likes, it will shut down. It happens quite often. Thank you, Unaya. And I have to kind of tinker with it so that I can keep it going. Yeah, no, seriously, it does. It kind of sucks. I don't know why that is, but if people are not engaging with the live, liking the live, or sharing the live, if like none of these things are happening, what will happen is that it will not go out to other people, and so people won't know that I'm live. And on top of that, what will also happen is, what has happened for me is it will ask me, it'll tell me your live is about to shut down in 5 minutes, and I'll have to do something to get it to keep going. It's actually insane. And that's why when that happens, I ask you guys to like it or like it up so that it doesn't shut down. It's terrible. Yeah. But thank you, Unaya. And to the other person who came in and liked it. But I'm kind of like, I have noticed a lot of people become extremely obsessed with the outcome of a thing. And to me, I believe this obsession, or perhaps it's a delusion, right? To think that you can control the outcome. To me, that probably comes from being in controlled environments, right? And so in controlled environments, there is a guarantee. And when you get consistent guarantees, you believe that this is how life works, that everything is guaranteed, that outcomes are guaranteed, right? And it's not it's not that it's not possible, it's just not realistic. Not everything is guaranteed, right? Life throws curveballs and you gotta adjust and you must pivot. But when I think about that, people, this to me is what kind of conditions people into focusing on the outcome, because they believe that it's guaranteed, and so they put little to no focus on the process. And so as a result, their process becomes very sloppy, very tacky, right? It looks undone. And this is because they believe that they can call in the outcome by way of putting all of their attention on the outcome, when all it's doing is burning you out and it's taking away energy and inspiration, right? When really the goal, right, what you need to actually do to conserve your energy and to stick to the process at least until completion. Oh, I'm glad. At least until completion is to focus on the process, right? You must be devoted to the process, married to the process, devoted, steadfast, and loyal to the process of a thing, because the outcome becomes inevitable, right? It's like the ripple when you throw a rock, right? It's gonna ripple, it's gonna cause a ripple in the river, right? Because that's, kind of how nature works. But when you're trying to control how the ripple looks, or when the ripple happens, or all of these other things, you get really distracted by the things that you cannot control, right? And you become less focused on the things that you can control, resulting in a distance between you and the desired outcome, right? This is what is burning people out badly. Is that they are focusing too heavily on the outcome of a thing, thinking that they can control it when it's really just generating more and more anxiety. You focus on the process because the process is where your power is. It's the only thing that you can control, right? Not the outcome. Again, the outcome is a ripple. It is the effect of the cause. You are the cause. The outcome is the effect. You don't control the effect. You control the cause, right? The cause is the process. And so, this is how you conserve energy, right? When people find themselves starting and stopping, committing, and then letting go, it's because when you are in anything for transactional reasons and the transaction is slow, or it's not coming as fast enough, or you don't see it or whatever, you're going to let go immediately. Now, I'm not saying that you should never be transactional. I believe that it's useful in some cases, but in things that, how would you know you're giving too much, not too much outcome in mind? So this is a good question. How would you know you're giving enough, not too much, not too little to the process without the outcome in mind? So when I think about giving enough to the process, you don't need to measure how much you're giving to the process. When I say devoting oneself to the process, what I am speaking of is getting so lost in the process of whatever you're doing, right? That is what devotion is. It's when you're getting so lost in the process, in the creation of something, right? That you're not really paying much attention to the outcome. The outcome comes, right? But you don't need to control it. It's almost delivered to you in a way. And so the goal is to get almost lost in the process, to merge oneself in the process, not to necessarily measure how much you're giving to the process. Once you start measuring how much you're giving to the process and measuring how much you're giving to the outcome, that's when whatever it is that you're producing, it's not potent, right? Whatever it is that you're creating, it's not you wrapped up in it, if that makes sense. It looks like some of you is in it, but not all of you, right? Like you're in it kind of, but not really. And so what you end up getting from committing somewhat to the process, but also putting some of your attention on the outcome, is you don't really get a full result, right? I'm glad, good. You don't get a full result, or you don't get the fullness, the fruition of the process, right? Almost like when you are sowing seeds, the point is to get a full crop, right? But if you unearth the seed, right, a little too quickly, because you're like, okay, result, let's go, right? You're gonna get like a little bit, it's like, okay, so the crop isn't fully formed, or it's not fully ripe, or whatever. And this is because when it comes to planning, when it comes to the process of growing anything, you cannot control how long it takes to grow. You can only commit yourself to the process of it growing, if that makes sense. And so by way of doing that, you do not interrupt the process, right? Too many people interrupt the process of something growing into its fullness because they're impatient, or not enough of their focus is on the process. Much of it is split in half. Some of it is on the process, some of it is on the outcome. Everything needs to be in the process, right? If I want what I am owed, if I want the fullness of the reward that I feel like is owed to me, right? Then I'm going to commit all of myself to the process, right? Not to I'm going to get lost in the process to the point where time is it's not an obstacle, it's a companion. Me and time are together because we're in this for life, right? If that makes sense. I'm loyal to this so much so that I'm not even paying attention to the outcome. And so the outcome comes because it's inevitable, because it's supposed to, not because I'm controlling it, not because I'm worried about it, not because my focus is somewhat on it. It's because it is owed to me by way of my commitment to the process, if that makes sense. I'm glad, thank you. I'm glad that makes sense. But no, that was a great question. That was a brilliant question. So that's why I'm just kind of like, people, what they find themselves doing is committing to something, and then for sure, thank you. No, thank you for that question. It's a beautiful question, for sure. But what they find themselves doing is committing to something and never being able to finish, or at least get out of it what they desire to get out of it initially, right? They let go, or they dig up the crop before it has rooted itself. It's like you just planted it. You just planted this thing. Don't touch it, right? You just nurture it. Nurturing is the process, right? That's what you want to get lost in. And the more you put weight and therefore focus on the process of a thing, the more you refine the process, so much so that you are unconsciously speeding up the result, right? You're speeding up the outcome, right? Because you're getting better and more refined at the process, right? And it shows. So much so that the outcome that you're looking for cannot be delayed. It cannot hold itself back from you, right? Because you are perfecting, you have put so much focus on the process that it is near perfection, damn near perfection, right? And so the result becomes inevitable, right? And so that's why I'm just, I'm kind of like, people need to stop committing to the outcome, right? I know capitalism makes us transactional, but when it comes to building anything of worth, and when it comes to committing to yourself, the betterment of yourself, the betterment of your life, you must be committed and devoted to the process, right? Thank you for the follow. And so this is why I'm kind of like, take your focus off of the outcome and put your focus on the process. Become devoted to the process, right? So that you may conserve your energy. This is how people are burning out as soon as they start, is because their focus is on the outcome, because they believe that they can control the outcome. Imagine thinking that you can control a ripple, right? You know how insane that is? If I throw a rock, right, in the water and I let that thing skip or whatever, I don't need to control where the ripple is going to show up. The ripple, it's going to be there because you skipped the rock. Like, when I think about the effect, when I think about the result, when I think about the outcome of anything, that is, I want to say that is the comparison here. We're comparing the result, the outcome, or the desirable outcome, or whatever it is. We're comparing that to a ripple in nature, a ripple in the river, whatever it is. That is something that you cannot control, right? It is the result or the effect of the cause. You are the cause, but you don't control the effect. You can only control what you can control, that being you being the cause. You are the process, if that makes sense. And so your power is in the process. People outsource their power by putting it on the outcome. I know I spoke about this in the other live. I said, one of the reasons people get burnt out is because they're focused a lot on either the future, right, which actually ties into what I'm talking about right now, trying to control the outcome. Your mind is in the future. And so what this causes is anxiety, right? It can cause excitement, right? And the only reason why it would cause excitement is because the future is made up, right? And so it's not set in stone. And so as a result, you get to make things up in your mind. Or people's focus and mind is in the past, right? The past is comfortable to be in because your nervous system registers the past as safe. It has already happened. It has already been memorized. You already know how to get through it, right? And so what your nervous system will often be compelled to do, inclined to do, is to allow the past to inform your present so that you can avoid the unknown which lives in the present, right? And so focusing on the outcome or the future, which is made up, without putting any focus on the present, the unknown, or the process of a thing, actually puts distance between you and the outcome, right? The inevitable outcome, right? There's not supposed to be much distance, but if you focus so much on the outcome without putting any work in the process because you're desperate to get the outcome, you don't get it, or you delay it and delay it and delay it and keep delaying it. This is because you are outsourcing your power by way of putting focus on a thing that has not come into fruition yet. It's on its way, but focusing on it will not make it come faster. focusing on the process to get there will make it come faster, right? It's so crazy. This download actually came to me a little earlier, and I was like, I believe I should share it. And so, you know, when I think about how people speak about manifestation, right? You think about the 4D realm, right? And the 4D is where thought lives. It's where thought exists, right? If I am thinking about bringing something as light and not seamless, but as light and not seamless, but as light and formless as thought into the 3D, which is dense, right? I exist in the 3D because I am of gross matter. I'm heavy and I'm dense because I am of gross matter. I'm heavy and I'm dense, right? When I think about bringing something as fast and as formless as thought into the 3D, it's got to go from something formless to something dense. That means a process is required, right? Almost like a crystallization process, right? Or going from the 3 states of matter, so from a gas to a liquid to a solid when it gets here. Formless to having form, right? So think of gas, liquid, form, right? So think of gas, liquid, and then solid, right? When I think about pulling from the ether into the 3D realm, I am not thinking of the outcome, like focusing on this thing becoming a solid so that I can see it is not going to make it come faster. It's not going to crystallize into something that I can touch any faster. What will make it come faster, what will make the process speed up, is my focus on my process, right? What am I doing to speed this thing up? Not focusing on the actual manifestation of the thing, right? That's not how that goes. I know the spiritual girlies are like, you know, just say these 3 things, these 3 mantras or whatever, right? And so what they are, you know, doing is kind of putting the person's focus on the outcome, inevitably, so much so that they have removed all focus from the process on getting it from the 4D into the 3D. And so now they're like, oh, why isn't it working? Why is it taking so long? And all of these other things is because you're outsourcing your power, and your power is in the present, and therefore the process. Become devoted to the process, and whatever you're trying to bring into existence becomes inevitable. Become devoted to the process, and whatever you're trying to bring into existence becomes inevitable. And it comes very quickly, right? Because you perfect the process, right? It's almost like being, I don't know, a sharecropper. Like the first time you do it, not that I know much about sharecropping or anything, but let's say you're just, you know, you're a farmer, you plant or whatever. The first time you do it, it's probably gonna suck, right? Like you've never done this before, and so you're gonna make mistakes, and those mistakes are inevitable. But then you find yourself doing it over and over again, and what happens is you take note of the mistakes that you made before, and you perfect each time you do it so that you can either get a better result or a faster one, right? This is how experimentation goes. This is how, I mean, when you think about, or you're synthesizing a molecule for the first time you're not going to get the full result, right? The first time you may get a very small yield or nothing at all, and then you keep doing it by way of perfecting the process, and then all of a sudden you go from not getting anything to getting a bulk, right? A really large amount of yield. A large amount of, it just means a large amount of the product that you're looking for, right? So you go from getting nothing to a bigger product. How did we go from 0 to 75% yield or 95%, yield, right? I'm saying yield because when I say 95% yield, I just mean what they got, right? Their experimental amount versus their theoretical amount is about the same, right? 100% yield means that what I theorized that I would get, I literally got that exact amount, right? So the difference between the person that, started off and didn't get anything to now we've got a huge amount of yield is not that their focus changed from, I don't know, like the process to the yield or it's not that they put all of their focus on the desired amount. What happened, the difference between the two, right, from 0 to a 95% yield is that they perfected the process. They perfected it so much that they were able to make it more efficient, right? And so the process got quicker, right? And so people, you see how this person, they didn't focus on the outcome. They got to the outcome faster by way of putting all of their focus on the process. How can we refine this? What mistake did I make? Okay, so I made that mistake. Let's record that. Okay, so how do we avoid that? They refined and refined and refined, so much so that the outcome became inevitable, right? The 95% yield became inevitable. This is life. You know what I'm saying? You don't focus on the outcome. You focus on the process, right? Because the outcome, again, is an inevitable result as a result of you refining the process of whatever it is that you're doing, pursuing, whatever it is, right? And so I want people to get that so that they can stop outsourcing their power and burning themselves out. You devote yourself to the process so that you may get to the outcome faster, but you put no focus on the outcome. You put all of it on the process. Why? Because the process is the only thing that you can perfect, refine, and control, right? When I think about optimizing a process, I just think about making it more efficient, right? So I may add a little bit of this. I may shorten the time, right? Maybe I start this reaction, or maybe I start 2 reactions at the same time rather than just one at a time. That's optimization. I'm learning how to now make the process quicker and more efficient. Why? Because I mastered the process, right? So now I can kind of play with it. I can manipulate it, right? To the point where I'm no longer worried about the process. I've mastered it so much that I can present the process. I can present it in a way where I'm like, here's a quicker way to do it. Here's a quicker way to get it done, right? And so now the results not only become inevitable, but they get quicker, right? But this only happens by way of you devoting yourself to the process. You must master the process, right? So this is something that I think everyone can apply to anything. You don't get the outcome by focusing on the outcome, right? When I think about outcomes, outcomes are earned, but they're not. You don't have to work yourself to the bone either. You wouldn't have to, really, if you just devoted yourself to the process. See, to me, people who work themselves to the bone are focused on the outcome. They want the outcome so bad that they think that they have to give an arm, a leg, and many other things, when all you have to do is almost fall into a loyal commitment, almost in love with the process. You don't have to love it all the time, right? You may be like, you know what? You got to sleep on the couch today. I'm tired. I've done everything I can. I'm exhausted. It happens, right? It happens. But at the same time, it is by way of you mastering the process and getting better at it that gets results. The results is an after effect. But your marriage is to the process, not the results, right? Because you can't control the timing. But what you will measure, what you will learn, right, is that the better you get at the process, the more efficient you are at the process, the quicker the results, right? And so that's really all you have to do, is devote yourself to the process, so much so that you're not thinking about the results. That way, you're in a state of flow, right? To me, when you focus too much on the process, when you focus too much on the outcome of anything, there's almost like a block, right? Rather than you being in a flow state, you're constantly checking, right? And so you're constantly disrupting your own rhythm. And so you cannot be in a flow state. You cannot get what it is that you so desperately want when it comes to your desirable outcome, or whatever it is that you desire out of the process. You can't get it because you keep disrupting the rhythm by way of putting your focus on the outcome all the time. It's like, no, just put your head down and focus on the process. Devote yourself to the process, right? But because there is an obsession with controlling the outcome, you disrupt the rhythm and therefore delay the outcome. Does that make sense? Hello? Let me know if that makes sense. I think that makes, but this is why it doesn't make sense to be half in the process when it comes to attention or focus, and half in the outcome. Let me see something. Oh, need this thing to stay up. Oh, I wonder why. Okay. Let me see. Hi, Michael. Hello, hello. Sorry, still haven't gotten good at this thing. I think I'm good at lives. Let me see. Let's see. Okay. I think I've gone over everything. That's it for today. Okay, cool. So I just clipped this up.